Welcome to the Middlesex Moments radio show. I am Dr. Anna Wasesha, president of Middlesex Community College, and joining me today is Christine Witkowski. Christine is professor of environmental science here. She's got slightly more tenure than I have. Remember, I have just arrived from Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes, so I'm, of course, very, very interested in environmental issues. And Christine started here a year ago. We're going to be talking today about the environmental science program and sustainability in an academic curriculum at the college level. And we're also going to be talking about a very special event that is being sponsored partially by Middlesex Community College here in Middletown on September 24th. And I'm going to let Christine talk all about that. But let's just start with how it was that you yourself found environmental science to be a field you wanted to dedicate your life to, because you must think about it all the time.
Yes, you can't not think about it constantly. But, I started out actually planning to go to medical school. So I was studying biology as an undergrad and loved it, always loved science. But I was starting to realize as I finished my degree that I didn't really want to be in a hospital all day long or stuck in a lab with a white coat. And so I took some time off and thought about, what do I really love? What do I care about? What am I passionate about? Love science, but I love to be outdoors, and I love the environment. I care about the environment. And so I ended up in a graduate program studying geology. And it seemed like a really good way into studying about the environment, because that's all about the physical environment. So between my undergraduate work in biology and the graduate work in geology, those two things mesh together beautifully for an understanding of the environment.
The last time I even read about geology directly was probably in fifth grade science. So I remember identifying sedimentary rocks and igneous. But so what do you study when you're in a master's degree program in geology? Mm-hmm. What are your courses about?
I started out in studying hydrogeology, so water, groundwater, for example. But you can study rocks and minerals and how mountains form, and every element of our physical environment has something related to geology. How it got the way it is all about geology.
What was your favorite course?
I think ultimately it's plate tectonics, learning about how the crust moves and how the mountains form. That's really been my favorite area of geology, and that was what I studied in graduate school, mountain building and the metamorphic rocks that make up most mountains.
That's fantastic. That's wonderful.
It's
Coming
wonderful.
From the Midwest, where there are no mountains.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to take a break here. We're going to come back and talk about environmental science and sustainability across the curriculum here at Middlesex. Welcome back to Middlesex Moments. We're talking today with Christine Witkowski, who is a professor here in environmental science. We were just talking about her graduate program in geology, and over the break talking about how you can read rocks. So for everyone else's benefit, would you tell them this amazing story about reading rocks?
Sure. It's really ultimately what I love about geology, that you can look at the landscape, you can look at the rocks, you can look down even at the microscopic level and learn how to read the signs at all of those scales and know what happened in the past. And we're talking about, hundreds to thousands to millions of years ago. And there's a really detailed history recorded all around us if you know how to read it. And that may sound obscure to study things that happened in the past and care about what happened millions of years ago, but ultimately it relates very much to environmental issues, because if we do not understand what happened in the past, we can't understand what's happening around us today. We have to be able to compare and contrast the past to the present and understand what's going on now.
So could you actually give us an instance of what you mean by that? If we don't understand what happened thousands of years ago, we can't understand what's happening today.
Sure. Yeah, one of the things we can do in terms of reading the rock record is we can look at the fossil record specifically. What fossils are present in which rocks, and piece together the timeline of what things lived when, and more importantly, when things went extinct. And we start to be able to understand the history of extinction, normal extinction, because all species have a limit to how long they exist on Earth, and they'll naturally go extinct. It's called background extinction. So the rock record shows us that, how at what rate that happens naturally. And then we also see events of mass extinction in the rock record, where you can actually walk up to the right rocks in terms of the age of the rocks, and you can look at a fossil record that comes to an abrupt end, and then we see barren rocks in the immediate aftermath of that mass extinction. So most people know about 65 million years ago, the dinosaurs, the asteroid, but many other organisms were extinguished in that event, and there were other mass extinctions. There were 5 total. So by understanding the background extinction and by understanding mass extinction, we can look at the rate of extinction going on today and immediately know that the rate of extinction today qualifies as a mass extinction. Even though we don't see animals dropping dead around us, we don't have an asteroid that slammed into the Earth, but the rate at which animals are going extinct and other organisms are going extinct today qualifies it as the 6th mass extinction. And guess what's responsible for this one? We are the next asteroid.
Oh, wow.
So that's the intersection of understanding geology, the rock record, and understanding an environmental issue that's very serious today.
There's a wonderful story. Now I'm going to try to remember who wrote it. It may have been H.G. Wells, about a butterfly and you could time travel. But the caveat was that you couldn't touch anything in the past, because if you did, it would impact everything. And the time traveler took a butterfly out and then came back to the present day, and the world was unrecognizable because of that. But that is kind of the story, isn't it? I mean, this is what the whole idea of ecology means, that everything is linked to everything else.
Oh, very much so, yes. And I think that's one of the things that's beautiful and wonderful about learning about environmental science is that sense of the interconnectedness of absolutely everything. To go back to the extinction example, one of the things that's truly amazing is that it was the extinction of the dinosaurs and other organisms at that time that opened up a lot of ecological niches for mammals to begin to flourish. So we can think of our own history as very much a result of that extinction. So even for those who wish dinosaurs were still running around today, anyone who loves dinosaurs and kind of wishes we had a few pet dinosaurs, we probably wouldn't be here in this form if it hadn't been for the fact that dinosaurs went extinct and opened up the world for us. Pretty amazing.
It is amazing. So do you find that the college students who sign up for your classes and populate the seats in your classrooms are interested in these kinds of things?
I do. I really think so. They're interested in spite of themselves often, because I have people who come in who are really afraid of science, had bad experiences in high school, but they have to take a science class, so they take something like natural disasters, that's a popular one, or Introduction to Environmental Science, and I think they start to discover that there's a lot of really relevant stuff in those subjects for their lives and for the modern world, and so they do start to look very interested.
What do you teach in natural disasters?
We talk about all of the different natural disasters that you could possibly imagine. We look at the history of when and where they've occurred in the past and around us today. We've certainly had plenty in very recent time. So we start to talk about what the patterns are, what the causes are, and what we can do to mitigate those disasters. We can't totally prevent natural disasters, but we can limit their impact on human society. And
how might we limit the impact?
Well, it depends on the disaster, but some of it's all about preparedness. You know, we look at Hurricane Irene, and we did a good job as far as preparing for that. So that made it less of a disaster than it might have been otherwise. Some of it is warning systems. So when we look at that horrible tsunami that occurred, the Boxing Day tsunami in the Indian Ocean, no warning systems in that area of the world. So though they wouldn't have had a lot of warning, a little bit of warning would have saved some of those 200,000 lives.
Sure.
And in the aftermath of that, warning systems are now being put in place. So by understanding the risks or the hazards that are present in a particular area, we can look at what needs to be done to minimize the effects of the inevitable natural events that are going to occur in those places.
Sure. I actually, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the old concept of storm cellars, which is what people had in the Midwest before basements became ubiquitous. And actually, my mother was always, she'd grown up on a farm, she was always worried about people who lived on houses that were on slabs because there was no shelter for them. And you see, it was so, I watched this happen in my lifetime, that the Tornado Alley in the Midwest has actually moved north out of, not completely out of, but out of kind of, because Joplin, Missouri got really hit badly last year, but north from the kind of Kansas and eastward line up into Minnesota. So Minnesota was really hit by those tornadoes. And you're right, preparedness is, most of the way to address that. And of course the other is to be able to have FEMA and other groups step in and help people recover.
And I think that's an important element of the courses that I teach is, although we don't talk about politics or policy to a large extent because I want people to understand the science, I also want the students to walk away as citizens understanding the science and the need for things like the EPA and FEMA, and to understand their role in helping us deal with all of these issues, because I'm not sure that the general public really does have that perspective on how important those institutions are.
Right, and I think that the issue, certainly around New Orleans, for example, and now the East Coast here, is the economic setback that all the various cities and states experience because business comes to a standstill. Some business is actually somewhat ruined.
Right.
There was certainly a long time where people in New Orleans were concerned. For example, even tourism along the Gulf Coast would be damaged. And in the end, that means that people can't, if they can't earn a living, will begin to migrate away. And this is this idea of mass migration around the world, right? Away from areas that have been somewhat decimated. Decimated, as I always remind myself, just means a tenth of it was destroyed. So let's say somewhat destroyed. And then they move toward the natural resources. And I think water and the access to drinkable water will cause mass migrations as we get further into this. Yesterday, you had a guest here from New Haven who was talking about the One World House, and we should start talking about that in the next section of the show. But I wondered, because these are people in Nicaragua, the experience of people along the coast, and of course the island nations, and what will happen to them as the sea levels rise. And, why would the sea levels rise? And my guess is you'd be able to help us understand that.
Yes, well, I'll certainly be happy to talk about that.
Good. All right. Well, we're going to take another break and come right back after this message. Welcome back to Middlesex Moments. This is Anna Wasesha, the president of Middlesex Community College, and today my guest is Christine Witkowski. Christine is a professor of environmental science here at the college, and she's also very engaged in our sustainability initiative here. Yesterday, she brought a guest to campus who works out of New Haven on a project, a sister city project with Leon in Nicaragua. So, Christine, can you tell us about this person and the efforts that they're engaged in?
Absolutely. Chris is the program director of this project that has been very engaged for nearly 30 years down in Leon, Nicaragua. And over time, apparently, they became more and more aware of the impacts that climate change were already starting to have on the rural communities there. So these are very vulnerable populations. They are living in basically shacks, corrugated metal shacks. And we actually have a model of one of these 8x8 shacks. It would house probably a family of 6 down in Nicaragua. And we have a model of this on campus for the faculty and staff and students to explore and learn more about what life would be like down there. The model also has 9 banners around the outside that talk about what life is like, but also about what is climate change and how it's disproportionately affecting developing countries like Nicaragua, and in particular the coastal population, where sea level rise becomes a real issue, or populations that are built very close to sea level already. So only a few feet of sea level rise threatens them quite significantly. And the increase in storm activity that would result, or it may in fact already be happening as a result of climate change, the increased severity of storms and increased frequency of storms. For anybody who's lived through Hurricane Irene recently and the winds and the downed trees, imagine doing that in a corrugated metal shack that's 8x8. It's almost impossible to imagine.
Right. When I saw the shack, the building that's on campus, it reminded me of Haiti.
Yes.
Because Haitians, many of them, millions of them probably live in structures like that. And if there's so little to them, that you can see they would be wiped out almost immediately.
Yes. And in fact, funny you should mention that, but yesterday after setting up the house, a student walked by named Jean he's a student here and he's from Haiti, and he said that looks really familiar. And he wanted to know what it was, and he said it's like that in Haiti. And of course those kinds of shocks, different kind of disaster, but earthquakes too happen in Haiti, threaten those same kinds of communities of villages that are very poorly constructed.
Right, and of course no electricity or running water or sewage or even an area to cook. I mean, you have to cook outside.
That's right.
Well, this house is going to be on display here all week, but then it's going to go downtown, right, to Middletown.
Right. Yes.
And then go up to Wesleyan University, right, for another week. So people in the listening area could easily go see it. But on Saturday, there's a special event. So let's talk about that.
Yes, it's very exciting. It's called Moving Planet Day, and it was initiated by an organization called 350.org. The idea is that 350 is the amount, 350 parts per million is the amount of carbon dioxide we need to get back down to in the atmosphere. We're currently at 390 parts per million and rising, something like 2 parts per million per year. And in all of human history, and in fact going back even longer than that, the level of carbon dioxide has always been below 300 parts per million in recent geologic history. So,
can I ask you about that? Because as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the formation of the Earth's mountains, and that would have been a huge amount of carbon activity, I would think, right? Molten. So was there more carbon in the atmosphere millions of years ago?
Millions of years ago, that's right. If we go back far enough, we can certainly find instances of time when carbon dioxide levels were much higher than even 390, where we're at today. But the key point, sometimes people say that and say, well, what's the big deal? That's normal, it's happened before. But human civilization evolved in a much lower carbon environment, lower carbon in the atmosphere. So we are not adapted for an environment that has that much carbon dioxide.
Right.
So that's really the issue. What is human civilization built around?
Right. And that kind of the good news, though, is that the Earth can heal itself to some degree.
It certainly can. Natural cycles will, I don't know if I would call it healing itself. It's all a matter of your perspective in terms of what our environment is like. Is it going to return to a normal that we're comfortable with in our lifetimes? That's not something that the Earth can probably do for us at the rate at which we're pumping carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
But if we did something, ultimately, if everyone did something, maybe we would get back to 350.
That is doable. That is a doable goal, and that's what this particular event is all about, is trying to raise awareness about moving away from fossil fuels towards a world where we can have a manageable level of carbon dioxide. And even if we achieve that and reach the 350 mark, we're still going to have to adapt to some changes in the environment that are already set in motion. But by limiting ourselves to the 350 level, we are mitigating or minimizing future impacts of climate change. So it's a very important goal to achieve, and it's very doable. Moving away from fossil fuels is the theme for this event on Saturday. It's worldwide. Many countries around the world are having rallies and celebrations and mass movements. And it was actually very much inspired by the events that have been going on in Egypt and other countries in the Middle East, the idea of people power. So the same kind of energy is being hopefully being tapped into for raising awareness, increasing the will of the people to achieve this goal that we so badly need to achieve in terms of climate change. So Moving Planet Day here in Middletown is going to be about getting people out on their bikes, on foot, on skateboards or skates or any means of alternative transportation, and come downtown, do your errands as normal on Saturday, but do them in some other way than driving a car. And then come to the Holy Trinity Church, where we're going to gather between 10 and 2, and you can come and go at whatever time you're in town. We will have some food there. We'll have preview of the art farm. Circus for a Fragile Planet, the new production Submerged, which takes a look at rising sea levels worldwide. So this new production will be previewed at the Moving Planet Day at 11 and 1 at the Church of the Holy Trinity, and then the show will go on Saturday evening at Oddfellows Playhouse. So you can come see that. We're going to hear a proclamation from the mayor about Moving Planet Day. We'll have bike repair workshops by Pedal Power. also bike safety demonstrations by the police. So this is all free. You can see the One World House installation that will be moved from Middlesex campus downtown for that event. Inside the Holy Trinity Church, there'll be a meditation, a walking meditation on all of these kinds of environmental issues we've been talking about, something just to get you thinking about these things. And there'll be various booths and demonstrations by some of the local environmental organizations, including our own sustainability team here at Middlesex.
Great. That's wonderful. When I listen to the list of things to do, I get really inspired, there's so many things that we have to learn. It's almost like we have to relearn how to live on the planet. And the issue of bikes is very important to me. In Minnesota, there's a lot of emphasis on complete streets. In Connecticut, they're not. What complete streets means is that they are suitable avenues of transit for pedestrians and people on wheeled conveyances like bicycles, as well as for cars and buses and trucks. And we have a long way to go to figure out some kind of equilibrium between all of those entities so that people can feel confident that they could ride their bike somewhere.
That's true. And that's a big issue. Sometimes people throw up their hands and say, well, it's not easy to do, so we won't do it. But I think a good point of this day is to make you think about ways that you can do it. Even though we don't have great streets or great public transportation, maybe there's a way that once a week you could do it, or once a month you could do it, and that moves us towards what we need to achieve. And then simultaneously with our individual actions, we need to be trying to make those bigger changes, the changes to our infrastructure that would make it possible to do this on a more sustained basis.
Right. Sidewalks would go a long way
to
helping us too,
Yes.
And of course safe neighborhoods. It just keeps branching out. And access to food in your neighborhood. As I was listening to Chris yesterday, I was thinking, we have to completely redesign urban areas so that the services you need, food, dry cleaners, whatever it is, hardware stores, are all somewhat walkable to where you live and to where you work. And, sometimes I hope that the internet will give us the opportunity to work more at home, essentially, so that you can actually spend most of your time in your neighborhood. It really does come down to being able to take care of your village, and your neighborhood is your village anymore. That's how we see it. So, we have just a few moments left. So let's talk about the sustainability initiatives here at the college. And can you just tell me what it rises to the top as some of the most interesting things that we're going to be doing, or that we already are doing?
Well, sure. One of the most exciting things to me, and I've been here only a year, but in my very first year, the strategic planning process that was undertaken here led to us agreeing as a community on one particular strategic priority on sustainability. So it's one of, I believe, 10 priorities that we identified for the college moving forward. But it's very exciting that the college committed to achieving sustainability. And that's going to be a long process. It's just the beginning. But we've already started. We have a sustainability team on campus that's been in existence for some time. And we've worked sort of in a formal way, but trying to create initiatives that raise awareness. We're trying to do some education. People want to know, well, what is sustainability? Which I probably should actually address here for our listening audience, that what we're talking about is really learning how to do things in such a way that we meet the needs of everybody on the planet without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. And that we're talking about that at many different scales, the scale of the cities and towns, campuses, and worldwide. So the sustainability team is working to do education and identify projects on campus that we can do, and also reach out to the larger community. There's a very active community of organizations in the Middletown area that we're partnering with, and it's very exciting to see the progress that we're able to make. And we're also working on our environmental program here on campus. That's undergoing some changes in the next year or so, and we're hoping to draw many students to campus for that program, which would allow people to either transfer to a 4-year program in environmental science, or hopefully to find jobs working as environmental technicians and so on.
I'm absolutely persuaded that the economy is going to shift toward a green economy, and I recognize that it's it's in slow motion. But there's, it's impossible for me to conceive of going back to a smokestack industrial economy. So,
I agree.
and we're smart enough, and we should be able to figure out how to do this, and we want to
Yes.
prepare our students to be ready when that happens.
That is the goal.
That's
yes.
right. That's right. So this has been a wonderful conversation. I
Yes,
appreciate you
thank
coming
you.
in to see me. And I want to thank the listening audience. Last week we talked with an economics professor. This time it's sort of an ecology professor. I love the idea that the eco part of that is Greek for household, that we want to think about everything in balance. We certainly see the community college here in Middletown as a part of the balance of the community, an important pillar of our society, and we hope that every opportunity you have to attend a function on the campus, or perhaps take a course, or get yourself involved with MILE, the Association of Lifelong Learners, that you will take that. We'd love to see you here at Middlesex. So this is Anna Wasesha, and thank you for spending this last half hour with us. If you have a moment, you can check us out at our website at mxcc.comnet, that's COMMNET.edu. I'm Anna Wasesha, president of Middlesex Community College, wishing you a good day.